I'm gonna give you 12 plyometric exercises that you can use to jump higher, and we're gonna start right. I'm Olympic strength coach Dane Miller. I've coached at 10 world championships, and this summer I'm coaching at my second Olympics. And I help athletes and coaches develop comprehensive strength training programs that lead to state championships, national championships, and college scholarships. And this first exercise is going to be a simple movement that you can use to increase that vertical jump. If we're thinking about jumping higher, this is gonna be an easy one. I really like to use a seated jump. Now, we're thinking about transferring force vertically, okay? Trying to get as high as possible. One thing that I like to do is even change the box height. So if I have an athlete who maybe when they back squat ass to grass, if they get stuck at a low position, I might actually lower the box to try and target that weak position. If I have somebody that's a little bit weaker, maybe in the mid-range, like this position right here, I might actually have them go off of an 18-inch box. But the first exercise is just gonna be a seated box jump here, okay? This is super simple. You could sit on a chair, you could sit on a park bench. It's very, very easy, and you can do like 5 sets of 3 here, okay? Now, one thing that you can do to add into this to make it a little bit more challenging is to do a tuck jump. So if I do a couple seated box jumps like I just did, nice and easy, I'm old, I'm trying to warm up before I do this tuck jump. What I'll do here is then add that tuck jump here, boom, back down, boom, back down, boom. Now, another aspect around jumping is learning how to transfer into some horizontal force. So we can do a jump here into a bound, or I can even just bound right off the box. So I could go here, land and bound, or I can be here and bound. So that's 3 different movements. Now we're gonna go into a couple other exercises to help you jump higher. So if we're looking at jumping higher, we've got to understand that plyometrics are gonna play a massive role in leading to that huge vertical jump. But we have to look at traditional speed strength exercises as well. Impulse exercises. So when we're trying to focus on developing athleticism to lead to greater jumps, I like to start with simple progressions. This video is all in on plyometrics. We also have to recognize that weightlifting derivatives and plyometrics both do a really, really good job based off research at increasing vertical jump and increasing speed. Then we can look at this as a simple progression. If we have athletes coming in the door here, we'll probably start them off with just learning how to squat properly, ass to grass, learning how to front squat effectively. Then we can lead into those weightlifting derivatives. Then after those weightlifting derivatives, we'll start to do some reflexive work, okay? Now we're trying to get the athlete to react with load so it's a little bit slower. And then ultimately we build into those plyometrics, which are gonna be done at very, very high speeds. So that's the foundation of how we can build upon jumping higher. So we know that jumping and plyometric work can be as effective at increasing our vertical jump or jumping higher as if we're doing weightlifting derivative exercises. So that brings us to our next exercise, and this is going to be a soleus jump, or more commonly known as a pogo hop, okay? So we wanna get in place here. Now, when I'm doing this, notice I wanna think about grounding from the middle of my foot forward. I don't want to be flat-footed, but I also don't want to be here. I want to be sort of in this position, and I want my ankle to be rigid, okay? I want my ankle rigid, and I want my knee joint to have slight flexion here as though it's a coil. So I'm here, boom, boom, boom. Look at my arm swings, okay? So this is another thing, is that oftentimes with athletes who struggle to jump, they just might not be that athletic, okay? And you have to use drills and use jumps like this to teach them the arm swing. If we use pogo hops, okay, here, boom, 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 boom. We can try to slowly increase the height, and we can try as hard as possible to decrease the time on the ground. That leads to impulse development. Now, one of my all-time favorite movements that I've really been playing around with quite a bit has been if I do a bound into a pogo hop. So I'd be here, boom, 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 okay? This is really freaking hard, especially for younger athletes to figure this out. You have to think about projecting forward, getting that chest out, cycling through, decelerating with the foot in front of you, landing, and then doing a rapid hop. So we'd be here, boom, boom, boom. Okay, so that's what we want to look for as that progression. This is a really, really challenging movement because you're changing direction, but it's freaking awesome for sports like basketball, volleyball, any sport really where you have to try to change direction. You might be running, planting, jumping, wherever you're doing. Another version of this is even more advanced. So advanced that I've only ever had a couple athletes, one being the number 9 discus thrower in the history of the world, Jaime Perez, who probably has the clean world record currently in the women's discus. And Jaime, as you'll find out, is one of the strongest women in the entire world and quite possibly the most twitchy female on the planet. Now, after 16 to 20 hours in an airplane, we've done exercises like this to try and wake up that nervous system so she can go compete and win some money. Now, the next progression off of that could be an easy jump, okay, so almost mimicking that pogo hop, go into 2 hurdle hops, which I'll demonstrate, and then finish with 2 to 3 pogo jumps. Okay, so we'll go here, boom, 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 boom. And this is what we've used recently with Jaime to really get her prepared to throw really far. For athletes out there, this would be, you do pogo jumps as a warm-up, or you do pogo hops as a part of your athlete day. Do that for 4 to 6 weeks. Take time to build that up. Then you can get into the bound to pogo jumps. That's much more complex. That's gonna take you about 3 to 6 weeks to adapt to. Then you can get into these hurdle hops, into that pogo jump, but it takes time. These are 3 freaking awesome exercises to get those bunnies. Now the next movement is going to be an interesting one, okay? So we're just gonna do this, boom, okay? We're just looking for that depth drop. Now, I've seen crazy videos of people doing like 15-foot depth drops. Maybe they were a little lower than 15 feet, like 10 feet, but I think it's a good place to start at like 12 inches. Maybe you work to 24. I don't really think you need to go much higher than that. Okay, so if we go here and just drop, we want to be able to put on the brakes with that eccentric force right there, okay? I don't want to see athletes here, if they're doing this, just sort of plop down. That's where we see that they need a little bit more stiffness in their joints. We like to use exercises like the depth drop when we're doing our athlete day, or even when we're doing our impulse day inside of peak strength. Typically, if we're trying to build speed strength, we look at lifting weights, moving heavy weights fast, and also doing movements like this. And then we can progress them really well, okay? So we're doing a depth drop. The next thing that we can do is do a depth drop to a bound. Here, boom, okay? Nice and easy. And you can play games with athletes. All right, let's have a competitive edge here. Let's see if we can jump 2 in a row and beat the partner that you're training with. Okay, here, boom, okay? That's one way that we're gonna use this in that progression. The next progression would be, we have somebody like myself who's slow off of the right leg. I wanna drop and do a single leg drop into a bound. So I'm here, boom, I wake this up, and then I go single leg. Then we can go into the left leg, drop, boom. And we can see in real time, where is someone lagging? Is it their right leg? Is it their left leg? Again, when we're building out our strength training program, we like to focus on this. And we have over 32 different sports inside of Peak Strength with programs built out for your specific goals, and it will help you lead to the peak that you need. And then finally, after we do this, let's say we do that depth drop to bounds, let's say we do depth drop to single leg bounds, the next progression, and if we did this over a couple different weeks, one of the things we have to think about is that when we're training high-level athletes, or when we're just training you guys who want to become high-level athletes, it takes time. We can just start with that depth drop. We do that for 4 to 6 weeks. You gotta train 2 to 3 days a week for 4 to 6 weeks. Then we go to depth drop to bound. Okay, we try and improve that. And then the last thing that we can do after we've been training for 12 weeks, 16 weeks, for a long period of time, because we want to attain these big time goals, is we can do a depth drop to a hurdle hop. Here, boom, okay? You can hit, and we want to think about hit, go, boom. We don't want to plop and collapse. We want to be rigid, absorb that, and then get into that next jump. So the next exercise that you need to use to try to jump higher is going to be a sweet one that I really, really love to use. This is one I use with Jan Johnson to help him get prepared to make the Tennessee Titans. And one of the things that we did was we wanted to figure out, how can we have an overloaded position that has a jump to really get him firing, to then jump forward so you have this horizontal movement and then lead into a vertical movement. We're gonna go here, 1, 2, drop, bound, come up. That's what we have inside of Peak Strength. You guys can download Peak Strength by heading to our peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store, to get on that gain train to become a freak athlete. I'm so out of breath right now. Okay, so again, here, boom, boom, drop, boom, boom. So you can work through this really consistently. Now, one thing we've got to bring up is that recent research has also showed us that basketball players will jump higher if they have greater relative strength, okay? That segues us into some different aspects around training. You look at someone like Josh Saracen. He's a guy who has a 40+ inch vertical weighing 270 pounds. He can power clean over 400 pounds. So that leads to a high relative strength. So we need to use movements like weightlifting derivatives, like a snatch, a clean, some type of jerk, okay, to really develop the ability to fire and move heavy weight fast. And if you learn how to use those weightlifting derivatives and you're doing jumps and you're doing the right strength training, you eventually might get to the point where you can jump like Isaiah Rivera. Because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.